the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Bruce, we'll have a roll call.
Okay, Bart is not here, Bart Campbell.
Haven't heard from Bart, so I don't know.
Dougie?
I'm here, sir.
Okay. Darrell?
Here.
TJ?
Here.
And Pam is absent. Bruce is here.
She's on vacation.
And Dan?
Here.
Okay.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I approve the agenda as submitted for April 17th.
Okay.
I'll
Motion.
second.
Okay. Motion by Darrell, seconded by TJ to approve the agenda. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, all those in favor of approving the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Agenda's been approved. Public comment. Any public, okay.
Just a question, it says on the map, it says sanitary sewer district. Is that just the Hamlet part? Because there is sanitary down Chubb Road, all the way to Pike.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm not aware of that.
all of the industrial down there got sewer.
Oh, okay. Oh, I know, seriously. Refer to our planner. I think you might have got, he might have caught us off guard here with that one.
Well, he may have. This is based on, and so this is a draft, and this is the Hamlet area that I was focused on. But this was based on the last sewer study that was done, looking at who had taps. So if there are additional, I can certainly add those.
I'm the last building on the right
Okay.
next to the old dump, and we got sewer.
So within this map, there's the yellow outline of the Hamlet area.
Right.
Does it fill in that
Oh, it goes-
triangle
It
there?
goes all the way past the tracks.
The map is incorrect.
The maps are correct.
Well, that's what we're doing. This is a draft for inclusion in the master plan, because right now, it's not clear, and so the intent is to provide clarity through visual representation in addition to the language that's in the ordinance, so,
I think it goes right down to Pike.
Okay,
The Hamlet Center District ceases at the railroad tracks. When you go across the street, they're not zoned Hamlet Center District. They're zoned light industrial or general industrial. So where you have the red that heads east there, that's incorrect.
that is the current sanitary area. Well, we can discuss this more when we get to this.
Actually, what the red is, you're right. The red is your current sanitary area, with the exception you also have it where it runs along Chubb Road and back up 6. It runs, which Mr. Horton told you, it starts at 5 Mile on Chubb Road, comes up Chubb Road on both sides, then comes back up.
That was after
6.
the original, we applied because they were gonna give it to a builder, and he wanted to pay for the sewer as he built. So we went in and said we'll buy it all at the same time, all of it. So it might not be on there, it was later on.
Okay,
Okay.
well, when we get to
We'll
the
get into it,
discussion,
yeah, right,
yeah, we can
okay.
ask for further
Okay.
input then if you'd like.
okay.
But I think if you're gonna rezone people to Hamlet Center District, I think you gotta have a public hearing and they have to be notified in writing.
This is still public comment, right?
Yeah, right, okay, right, yeah.
You got heavy industrial in that too, like Kalo.
Right. Bonnie?
I'd like to talk about this non-motorized plan for a bike path. Is that part of the one that's coming up, supposedly becoming a Pontiac Trail, or is that something different?
Well, I think we've got a,
We have one we have a map of one, I have a map of one.
Yeah.
Which does not even touch Salem Township.
well, we got a map that touch, it touches Salem Township.
Well, here's the map. I didn't get that in here. This is the one that doesn't have anything in Salem Township. Are the red lines bike paths? one with the little dots all along on the map shows me that the bike path goes diagonal through Ann Arbor.
I know one of them shows it where we, part of it is down by, I think Salem and 5 Mile, doesn't it? Isn't there an area there that includes it?
Where, I'm sorry?
Where it touches the township, the bike path.
An existing bike path?
Pontiac, coming up Pontiac Trail.
Okay, yeah, the one,
Okay, then it does include the one that the board is having the big company check for viability on.
There's two maps. One is the draft, preliminary draft, and the other one is the existing.
So if I could make a suggestion, maybe if there are comments that are related to agenda items, we can
Okay.
save those and
Yeah,
get
okay,
people's input
okay,
at that time.
okay.
Okay, my question is, are all the township residents going to be notified and asked if they want this thing in their front yard? We bought out here to be on our own, not to have a 10-foot wide pathway through our backyards or front yards. And who's going to police it, and who's going to clean it up? Who's going to literally police it as in police, and who's going to police it as in cleaning it up?
well, informally, you've got some of these paths being used right now by the bikes. You know, I've seen a whole ton of them coming through the township and that, you know, where they have different trails that they follow. Linda?
On your map for your non-motorized, you go down Pontiac Trail. And as the president of the library board, I received a call from several of my board members, and they are very concerned that this path would be on the east side of the road. We have a very pricey sign that we just put in to notify residents and patrons of what's going on at the library, and they don't feel it's a good mix to have that path walk by that sign. And I know that at this point it's conceptual, you don't know which side of the road it's on, but it is a concern for the library. Also because we do have a lot of traffic on any given day that pulls in and out of our driveway. We are concerned that you would encourage pedestrians or bikes to constantly cross that driveway.
Sure.
Thank you.
You know, I think all the board is involved, are they not? And looking at the feasibility of a bike path, and what it would entail, don't they have an outside concern that's looking at that?
That's correct.
Okay, so
Yes, we were told.
what we're doing here is not really taking any action. My understanding is try to get some kind of a concept of what we might do, but I think it's up to the board really to make that decision. And
You
I
guys
don't,
don't, being the planning commission, you don't get to make the decision on it?
well, I mean, I think they could refer it back to us. I don't know all the formalities of it, but.
It's like the roads, you guys don't get to make anything on the roads, but the township is deciding about the turnarounds now. My question is, who's going to ask every one of these people? Because when we first heard about it.
Well, I think you have to have a concept or a proposal. There's nothing really proposed. It's just in the discussion
There was.
stage right now.
There was a proposal, and they were going, Stantec or whatever the heck their engineering firm were going to find the feasibility of bringing it up Pontiac Trail. My question is, it's supposed to be.
But that feasibility is still, it's in a discussion mode. There's no action being taken. The township will follow the proper procedures if we decide to take action.
I'm happy to speak to these things, but if maybe we want to close out the public comments
Okay, we'll
first.
close out the, okay, let's
Unless
just,
there's something on another subject,
Okay.
because these two last items are both on the agenda.
right,
so-
okay. We're gonna get into it on the agenda. Anything else in public comment? Anything else that, not pertaining to the, bike road? Okay, we'll move on to new business, the, non-motorized plan, and I'll refer to.
And if you feel it's appropriate, we can certainly have some discussion and take comment
Sure,
during this time. but I
sure.
figure-
We're a small group, so we can, we got people here that have a lot of knowledge, so.
So the reason that we brought this in front of you tonight is twofold. One is the potential pathway or the feasibility study that's being done right now that's been mentioned this evening. And the other is the Washtenaw Area Transportation Study, the group that works closely with the Road Commission and SEMCOG to help filter funds to the communities here in Washtenaw County for transportation planning and transportation expansion, et cetera, is working on their non-motorized plan. So we have an opportunity at this point to look at potential locally preferred routes through the community. So when we talk about the process that you would go through in terms of public input, what I would suggest is the appropriate path would be, no pun intended, would be to discuss this in a public forum, talk about where we, the community, the planning commissioners, the residents, would want to see or not want to see pathways, if we want to see pathways, if we want to see wider shoulders. There's a whole myriad of things that we can propose, and being the local municipality, Watts is looking for input from us. So that does two things. It can get it on the plan so that when decisions come to be made either by the board, by the road commission, or if, you know, we as a community decide we're trying to go after some funding for pathways, we already have that there and we have that support.
My question is that the funding part of it,
Mhm.
and also the discretion of, you know, making these plans come to fruition. Can the county go ahead and do it, or do they have to have the township's approval to do it?
So the county has the ability within their right-of-way to do what they think is appropriate. When it comes to funding, it's expensive to put these things in.
Right.
I don't think that, you know, just politically, they would force a pathway through
Sure.
somewhere without getting that kind of backing or buy-in from the local community. In most cases, it's the local community who's saying, we really want to see a pathway here, and then working with the road commission
Right.
to make that happen.
That was my understanding on the board, that we would try to come up with a plan ourselves, and we would work with the county on it,
Mhm.
and, you know, then whatever process we have to go through, if we need to have approval of our residents, then we would have a public hearing and
Sure.
all of that. And that's what I heard, and then there's also funding available to do this.
Potentially.
Yeah, potentially, that's what I had heard on the board, you know, in the board meeting, so.
So if I can speak a little bit to Bonnie's
Go
question
ahead.
about the process. So like I said, first of all, I would suggest that as a community, we plan, and we kind of have a rough idea that these are the routes that we think are appropriate because they're connecting certain areas like parks or open space or neighborhoods or what have you. And so that's the first chance that residents would have to provide input, because you would put that into, I would suggest, the master plan,
Mhm.
because I don't think we're gonna go and do a whole non-motorized separate plan that would be like an
No.
addendum to the master plan. So it would be a section of the master plan, so that would be the first opportunity to receive input from the public, both while you're doing the planning process and then when you do the adoption process. So you have the, you know, public hearing, you've got the 42-day comment period, and followed by the public hearing. Those are obligatory pieces of adopting amendments to your master plan. So those are, you know, three opportunities that people have to provide input. With regard to a very specific pathway plan, there is currently a feasibility study going on for this Pontiac Trail route that would connect in through Ann Arbor Township, ultimately to the city of Ann Arbor, which is vaguely represented, not on the, so we have two maps in front of you. One is the Washtenaw County bike map, and that's really just kind of preferred routes. They've identified where pathways are, they've identified where bikers have indicated that they typically bike, et cetera. So that's kind of the known routes, if you will. It's not an official map per se, in that it's not designating anything other than where there are facilities or where people typically ride. The other map that's in front of you is the preliminary, locally preferred alternatives, if you will. And so this is where we have the opportunity to provide input. I spoke to a representative from Watts, and what they have so far is just the input that they've gotten. So I wanted to bring this to you, because this is our opportunity now to say, well, this is really what we'd like to see here in Salem Township. And so that will help us as a community in the future to be able to plan, to be able to work with those agencies in a situation like we're in now. So this is not on the books, but we're still, you know, I believe the board is doing a feasibility study. If after the feasibility study is done, it's determined that they want to move forward with something like this,
Would they survey the residents then on this, or?
well, that's up to the board how they want to deal with
Yeah,
it, but
that's-
once you start moving forward, and part of the feasibility study is understanding what kind of right-of-way you have. And so within the road right-of-way, like I said before, obviously the road commission has the ability to do what they want to.
Right.
Oftentimes, you need to meander around wetlands or trees or things like that, and often it's a very involved process where you're going out, and in my experience, you know, we would go and we, you know, hold a public meeting when we got to that point, and we go and put door hangers on the doors of the people who live along the route so we can get that input, talk to folks, because oftentimes while there's a lot of concern or fear or what have you, after you have that opportunity to kind of understand what people's fears and concerns are, show some of the best practices, they can be alleviated, or you can work with those people to alleviate those fears if possible, or, you know.
If it's
sometimes
part of our
it just doesn't
master
go.
plan, it's something that can be adjusted also even after the fact, right?
A master plan is always able to be
Yeah,
amended.
that's what I'm saying, you
Yeah.
know, so.
But we have the
if there's-
opportunity.
In other words, if there's issues that pop up after, but we're far from implementing anything, but I'm just saying, once you would implement, it's not ironclad, you know, etched in stone. I mean, we would still be able
Sure.
to make changes.
Yeah, so I feel like a master plan would be kind of the 10,000-foot view. This is where we think are good potential routes because we either know that there's good space along a particular road, it's already being used, or we have a particular need to connect places. So as we've been talking about, like the Hamlet Center, we've been talking about the USD down by Gottfredson and 14. There are certain areas that I think would probably be appropriate to make some of those connections. For instance, a pathway between downtown here, the Hamlet, and the new preserve area might be a very appropriate place to have a sectional path. If it ever does come to fruition that there is a trail on Pontiac, having something that runs out 6 Mile to connect the hamlet to that would also probably be appropriate. But again, all these things, you do want to gain public input, so I wasn't, certainly not trying to negate anything like that, but I thought since we were having this
Sure.
as part of our agenda, then we could, if you feel it's appropriate, you could ask for further discussion.
So having said that, on this preliminary plan, if we're trying to draw some people into the Hamlet area, we're bringing it from Pontiac Trail in the Hamlet, but we stop from bringing Northville across into the Hamlet. And I think we want to, if we're gonna have someone wants to bike across from Northville into our community, that would be something we'd want to have a leg that goes over to the Northville side. We do on Plymouth side, but down off of Plymouth Road, but we don't have anything connecting Northville to.
In which you're looking at this map here?
Yes, the map with that.
Oh, okay.
So we dropped off 7 Mile.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So we dropped off 7 Mile. We could have dropped them down Angle Road and coming into the Hamlet here, but we don't have anything going past the Hamlet into Northville or vice versa, Northville into the Hamlet. So if someone wants to, let's say we have an ice cream shop, and they want to come across and get an ice cream shop, they can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of the same thing, you know, they got the new coffee shop that's over on Pontiac Trail in North Territorial, or, you know, businesses like that, if they could somehow be incorporated. I'm sure the store here in town would love having the bikers come through, because they're gonna stop and get refreshments.
So are you suggesting that an extension down 6? The border
6
would-
Mile to Napier.
Yeah.
Right. And then the discussion would be basically,
Like, my husband's a cyclist, and so when we speak with cycling people, they tend to go to Heinz Park to cycle more because the traffic's safer. The road over here by the landfill is not safe.
Right, I was
So
gonna say.
nobody will ride on that
that
one.
was, the second I was gonna mention is the fact that, okay, it's nice that we bring it down Angle Road into the Hamlet, but at the same time, going from the Hamlet east to Northville, 7 Mile is certainly a safer path at the moment, at least for that one stretch from the railroad track to Mayfair Road.
They haven't been coming down 6 Mile though. I've seen big groups
They will.
come,
But
biking right down, coming
only
east to
certain-
west, down 6 Mile.
But if they build it, would it help if they built something for, you know, again, we might need to provide in this whole,
Something,
something for
But kind of like Heinz has a big shoulder that
right.
a lot of bikers ride on, you know.
So, yeah, I mean, I think the idea would be that in areas where we don't think that it would be safe to put people on the roadway because of speeds, because of the design of a particular road, it would be an appropriate place to look at putting in the 10-foot wide non-motorized path, the AASHTO standards, so that we could provide a safer place off-road. Even on a 10-foot wide bike path that's separated from the roadway. So oftentimes these things are set back from the road as far as you can.
The 275 thing is really nice, the way they have that. I used that for years.
Yeah, and so, in fact, I've been involved in a number of trail planning projects that have been implemented in the community that I used to work in. And there was a lot of concern, a lot of fear about, you know, what kind of traffic it would bring, if it was gonna bring crime, et cetera. Who would use it, why would we build this thing? And, you know, in fact, with both of the major portions of this trail that we built when I was still around, they had just roughed it in and had the first base of gravel, and people were out there running and riding bikes. And as it turned out, the people on the first legs of those pathway projects were the biggest proponents for the connection and the further loops that have been implemented. And they, you know, you bring them off of the road so they're as far from the roadway as possible, so it's safe for the bikers. And then, you know, obviously then the concern of the homeowners who have been there for a long time is, oh, well, this is gonna be right in my backyard, but if you utilize plantings well, if you meander the path through existing tree areas, it ends up being very nice, and actually statistics show that it increases property values tremendously to have these things, so.
Some of the houses adjacent to some of these bike trails, the little kids are entrepreneurs. They're out there selling bottles of Coke and different things, you know. So it's kind of funny, you know. So it's a matter of perspective.
Is there anything, like via the Ann Arbor that is talking about wanting to extend on the Pontiac Trail? I know we had talked about Pontiac Trail, and that's what we're doing the study for. But there was interest on their side, right? On the, with the Washington County, yeah.
With the
I always
parks.
think Ann Arbor, but,
No, I do understand that.
because it will join to Ann Arbor.
Yeah, that they're supportive of it. Ideally, you know, they're looking for, you know, in some ways pathways can be considered linear parks, but if you can connect to other recreational opportunities, whether it's a township park, or like I mentioned earlier, the preserve area down here on Salem Farm, I think is what it's called. Those connections, I think, help to pique the interest, especially of Washtenaw County Parks.
Because there's a lot of Pontiac Trail going into, you know, coming out of Ann Arbor that is not in Salem Township.
Right.
So,
And in fact,
you know, it wouldn't be feasible for us to do a study and get funding and do this pathway if it's not going to be a complete pathway.
right, so certainly part of the feasibility study is looking at where these connections are
And those are important.
and how it connects to the larger trail system. If you notice on both of these plans, you see the dotted string that kind of runs diagonally across from northwest to southeast. That is known as the Border to Border Trail, which maybe some of you are familiar with, but that's been a project that's been around for quite some time, where they're trying to connect from one side of the county to the other and provide connections to some of the other larger regional trails as well. So if we plan trail projects here that ultimately connect to that well-established trail project, that also
Yeah.
gives us brownie points, if you will, from a funding standpoint, from a participation of other communities, et cetera.
I know Pontiac Trail mean, I drive Pontiac Trail all the time.
Mhm.
It's dangerous for bikers and it's dangerous for motorists.
For sure.
Because there are so many people in bikes and long lines every weekend. Springtime hits, it's just dangerous for.
And that's why I think a lot of people are pushing for these pathways, because it can get the bikers off of the road.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I hate having to drive, yes.
Yeah.
Long lines.
There's a connection that comes from, like, in my subdivision where I live at the end of the street, at Cul-de-sac, there's a bike path that connects, so you can get on it, you can go all the way to Island Lake and then to Kensington. But on the other side of South Lyon, there's a connection by Volunteer Park,
Mhm.
and then it comes down to Pontiac and 8 Mile, and then there's a section in front of the library, but I can't remember what, like who put it there.
The city of South Lyon,
They put it by there.
yeah, it's to connect so that their people can ride bikes from the city to the library.
So I know I told my husband about this, they were excited so we could run into Ann Arbor.
Nice, you had your hand.
Well, first of all, these things that are non-motorized, I'm back to who's going to police them, because during the day, when you guys aren't around, and there's nobody around, who's gonna keep the four-wheelers off from running down, snatching what's in your garage and taking off again? Because that happens, and that will happen. And as far as you're concerned about putting on a lawn screen or decorations or growing trees in front of it so we don't see it, that shouldn't be our job. That should be the county's job, or whoever puts it up, because we bought our property out here because we wanted to be out here where it was rural. Remember, for 8 or 10 years or 20 years, that was the mantra of this whole township: keep us rural. Keep our farmers farming, keep ourselves rural, and now you want to bring the whole rest of the world down your walking path that's, as I remember, the man from Stantec said it would be 6 foot wide with 2 foot on either side, so it was 10 foot. And if they didn't have the room on the edge of the highway to build it, they were going to try and take the easement off the front of everybody's property to use it. And then you always have to have all these little spaces so that they can get on and off wherever they want. And then there's got to be rest areas, and there's a whole lot to go to it rather than just a black ribbon of asphalt. And if you want people to come out here, fine. But if you want the people that are here, that wanted to be out here and be in the country on their own without all these rules and regulations and the city coming in on, you're just invading their space. And I don't.
Well, it would be a township decision, Bonnie. It won't be a handful of people that will decide this.
No, it will be the township board or your board or
No,
whoever
no,
comes.
no.
Because a lot of people, if the one neighbor says yes and the other neighbor says yes, the guy in the middle's got no.
I think you need to decide what's the purpose of a path in Salem Township. Is it for our residents, or is it for people passing through? That's the first thing, because that dictates on the type of plan that you come up with. If it's for people passing through, the question I would ask you, I have a daughter-in-law who runs the Detroit Marathon, and she trains along Edward Hines, and so we sometimes go down and play with our grandchildren there. One thing that they have along Edward Hines is they have rest stops, a place that you can utilize facilities. In Salem Township, and I can see between Ann Arbor and South Lyon as you go north, people wanting to get that segment connected. Where do you have, within the 6 miles that Pontiac Trail runs, where people can stop? How do you plan to handle their needs? And I think those are things that, whatever your plan is, and the same thing if you're going west from Whitmore Lake to Northville. Again, I think it's something that'll be utilized. I grew up in a day when we rode from the edge of Redford out to Kensington. Our church did it every year. We had a big church picnic out there, and a group of bikers rode. But you have to plan for the people that are on that path. How do you meet the needs that they have? If they need to have something cold to drink, they need to use facilities. And again, is your plan for people passing through, or is it for us, the residents? And a vote will simply go by who educates the public the best. Northville Crossing has a huge number of voters who pay very little in property tax. And they typically, they're not gonna be impacted by that path, so they will come out and vote for however they best feel based on education. So I think you need to put a good plan in place, because if it is a reality, we want the best plan possible.
That's, your points are well taken, well taken. I know the bike path along 275, they, except for the east side, they had the rest area, you know, between, you know, just south of Canton there. But to Bonnie's comment, I traveled that thing all the way from Hines Park all the way to Flat Rock, and I was on it all the time. I never saw a motorized vehicle on those bike paths once, so I don't think that's a big issue. Yeah, but it, you know, I'm just saying that those concerns, though, we should, you know, take those into consideration, you know, and it's gonna be basically the residents are gonna decide. I would imagine the residents that are impacted by it will have the biggest voice on it, because.
No, they get one vote, just like everybody
Yeah,
else.
but I mean, but as far as encouraging it and,
Correct.
yeah, you know, and that type of thing, but you were, yeah.
So I have a question. Example, if you put a bike path, use Angle Road, okay? Say you decided down the line there's one going to go on Angle. The bikes that are on the road now, and I agree, in the springtime it's awful. Drives my dog crazy,
Yeah,
okay? Plus it's dangerous when you're
sure is.
going around them. But if you put a bike path on there, would that force these bikes to stay on the path, or can they have the option of doing
Yeah.
either one?
Well, I guess that's something, Paul, is that something that we could have ordinance-wise or whatever?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
No,
So-
you can't, because the roads are
Yeah.
controlled by the state.
Yeah.
And you can't add restrictions to the state roads.
Okay.
No,
So no,
I'll
you
just
should
tell
not.
you, as, I used to bicycle a heck of a lot, and we'd stay off the trails.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. They were too filled with slow riders, and they regulated you. And at times, they even had sheriffs with radar. That ridiculous.
Yeah.
Stopping the speed of bikes on the bike path.
Oh, my daughter and I on our tandem, we would be clipping the trail at about 45.
The other thing
And
is,
it was posted for 20.
is our helmets mandatory, and, you know, who's the liability of it? Because
No,
they have, well, Kensington, they made it mandatory, because,
Credit.
you know, they.
but it's not a state law.
No,
But it's a park.
So Linda is absolutely right. And
Yeah.
on the
Absolutely
public highway,
right.
all users are permitted. So
Yeah.
walkers, bikers, vehicles, all have the right to use the road. So
Would it alleviate it somewhat, though, as far as that a lot of bikers would take the trail, or
ideally, but then there are people like, you know, the
like Augie,
like Augie, the serious bikers who might not want to be
a rebel?
bogged down.
Yeah.
Stop
No,
laws.
you go out on 7 Mile and you see the serious bikers
Yeah.
at
Yes.
Dexter Trail.
Yep.
Hit the Dexter Trail, there's no bike path on Dexter Trail, and on the weekend, you know, that's where I motorcycle.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier than pedaling. And it is just packed with bicycles.
Yeah, or Huron River Drive that
Yeah,
that
we're
has
here on river.
big
Yeah.
shoulders and lots of curves and people are on it all the
So-
time, yeah.
Bob, you had a comment?
They're all right, because I live out in Hamburg, and Strawberry Lake Road is loaded with them, and they won't move over. They'll
Yeah, I know it.
basically,
No, I
they'll
know.
ride side by side and make you wait. They don't have any respect
I
at
know
all
it,
for cars.
I know it, I know.
They don't abide by the rules.
No.
The rule states that you can ride side by side
No.
on the road.
So,
They're not supposed to single file. That's when Randy was here,
You
that's
can
what he
ride
told
side by
me.
side on the road.
Bicycles.
Bicycles, you can, yes.
They're allowed to, I wonder why Randy would tell me, a state trooper would tell me no single file only. Because he would issue a ticket if they would not pull over and go single file when you go by. Because I wouldn't be for this to save my soul, because they don't abide by the rules of the road.
You can ride side by side.
There again, you need more bodies to do that policing.
Nobody can rent tickets or something.
So,
where are we at?
where are we? I guess maybe what we need to do is develop some kind of input process to get a better handle on this. I've heard lots of different opinions.
Well, the thing about it is, I think we need to know what's feasible, first of all, and then we would get the input, you know, because we have to have something tangible to present, whether we do it through the messenger, or whether we, like you say, door circulars or whatever, door handle circulars or whatever.
Right, so that would be something I think that you would do with a particular project. But if we were trying to put either something into the plan or provide some input to Watts, Washington Area Transportation Study, right now, who's developing a countywide non-motorized preferred alternative, and we have the opportunity now to say, these are where we'd like to see them or not. So I don't know if you want to do more of a robust input process for this kind of thing, if we're trying to put it in the master plan, how you want to do that.
Well, I think, now you've got experience, and Linda brought up some really good concerns as far as a rest facility or whatever, or refreshments or whatever.
And my son takes the rail trail, and it's, from 7 Mile up to Walmart and past there, and there is nothing, and it's a 7-8 mile section. There is nothing.
Yeah, that's how,
When you go on your bike, you put your water
Right.
bottles, and you
Yeah.
have your little carry packets.
Mhm.
and
You bring your own water.
You
Yep.
can ride on the road and
Yeah.
you get to where you're going, and then you use it, so.
Yeah.
Right.
So
But
the
Heinz
bikers,
Park
the
is
bikers
special
plan
because
their
they have-
routes.
It's beautiful
Yeah.
on
So-
Heinz Park, so they
so
want.
No, that's not meant for stopping, the rail trail.
Right.
Not meant for stopping.
So, Paul, my clear understanding our goal or job tonight is to maybe just identify potential paths, not to get into the deep weeds on the engineering and stops and laws and rules, just if we were to have a path, what makes a nice section for a path, where should we?
Provide those connections, like you said before, it would be nice to
So
see something
we're
going
not
over. the
making any policies or anything like that, we're just trying to say, okay, we would like to see a path here. If we're gonna have a path, here's a place to go on, or here's
Yes.
where not to go on.
That was my intent for bringing this to your
So
attention.
that's all we're looking for, is if we end up with a path program, where we like to see them. And that's how maybe we should present it in the messenger as well, or how we're gonna bring it to the public. Is if we were to add bike paths, what kind of connectivity, because I agree with you, connectivity is a big thing. And either bringing more commerce and community together here, or getting people to be able to pass through safely, things of that nature.
See, the board has this, and I'm thinking that the master plan would come after the board taking their action, and then we would incorporate it in the master plan. Am I right on that, or wrong, or?
No, I think the master plan is where you do your planning.
Okay, so the master plan's the concept.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the concept, and that provides then support for particular projects.
Okay.
So having this Pontiac Trail route on a master plan is, obviously it's been something that's discussed, so it
Sure.
seems like it would be logical to put that in the plan.
Because they talked about going along the west side, I think, and then around 8 Mile, cutting over, if I remember correctly, on the board, they were, maybe PJ would remember.
I don't remember where it cut off, I just
Yeah, because I
know
think
that it was
they were-
along Pontiac Trail.
Because they, in that library the issue, because when Linda was mentioning the library, that I thought about that being discussed on the board,
So the idea of the library, it's one of those kind of pearls on the necklace, if you will. That's one of the places that would be a destination point.
Sure.
So for, not necessarily the big time bikers who are going out on a 40-mile ride, but the folks
The
who
local people.
for the folks who live locally who want to
Right.
be able to ride up to the library with their kids. So the idea would be, yes, we would want it to be on the side of the library. There's already that section of path that's there, and that would provide a connection. So that's part, I think, of the intent of this particular path.
The Pontiac Trail path is a combined township, and all the townships are involved with the study, and the study is going to make suggestions.
Yep.
It may be on the west side, and you'll have to cross over at 8 Mile to get to the library and back again.
Well, and that's why they
Well, I
have to
think
do
you
the
were talking
feasibility
about
study
going
to
down
figure
a
out.
mile or something, weren't they talking about?
Above our pay grade.
There's already a path
Oh,
from
is-
Pontiac Trail down.
Is there? Oh, okay.
To the volunteer park trail.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, point of information,
Yes, sir.
double riding. Under Michigan Vehicle Laws, 257.660B, states that 2 or more individuals operating bicycles upon a highway or street shall not ride more than 2 abreast. More than 2 abreast,
Yeah.
right? Except upon a path or portion of the highway or street set aside for the use of bicycles.
So then it would be illegal if there's a
It's
bike
3
path.
abreast.
But it would,
If it's
you're
a bike-
saying it's okay for 2 abreast, except when a path is provided?
No, it just says, except upon a path or portion of the highway or street set aside for use of bicycles. So that means the 2 abreast rule doesn't have any force on a trail.
Yeah, well,
So if they
abreast.
want to slam
Okay.
5 abreast, they slam
Okay.
5 abreast. you know.
Okay.
So the 2 abreast rule, as written in the state law, states that no more than 2 abreast.
Go ahead.
So I'm just curious, like, okay, if you put it on Pontiac Trail, and people are gonna drive up because they wanna walk it, or they're gonna bike it, and they're coming from another city, where would they park their vehicle on 8 Mile, for example? Would they park it in the library? Would they park it at the 7 Mile store? Would they park it in Kroger? And who says that's okay for them to park there? Is it the property owner? Are they allowed to? I mean, I'm curious, where would they park their vehicles? Would they park it in front of somebody's house?
It's kind of like when they have a
Yes.
fair in a town.
Well,
And, you know,
that's
people
one-time
park
deal.
all over the place.
That's a
you know.
one-time shot. I'm just
Well,
curious.
you know, they have different activities, but I'm not advocating it, I'm just.
So oftentimes when these trails are planned, they're planned around areas where you might have a park, a public park and a trailhead, so there would be public parking in those areas. Parking in a private parking lot or a private residence, obviously you would have to get
Oh,
permission
yeah,
of
yeah.
the property owner. Even if it's a commercial establishment, if you're not sure shopping in the commercial establishment, certainly they could, you know, have a car towed if they have it duly posted, so. The intent usually is that you would have some type of park facility or public parking area at one end or the other, and it wouldn't necessarily have to happen, you know, when you're talking about trail connectivity, if this trail is connected to another, there are other places where that might occur. And I think that's part of the discussion with Pontiac Trail potential plan is where might a facility like that be? Is there space along there that could potentially be, you know, a township facility, and maybe even a park, you know, maybe even there's some land that exists in proximity to some other community facility like the library or other.
How specific do we have to be for the language and master plan about this? You know?
I think that a route map would be good if we talked about some of the issues and concerns, just in terms of discussion, and stated, you know, what the township's feeling or direction or policy was, that would be appropriate. It doesn't have to be a huge section, but I think that providing that in the plan would provide support then for any of these potential future projects.
Do we need to wait for Stantec to make their assessment before we would do this? or-
No. I mean, we could suggest that we wanted bike paths on every road in the township if we wanted to. I mean,
So,
that's-
so you're saying, as far as the master plan, we would talk about connecting to main roads.
Yes.
We would also, I'm just trying to think of some of the conditions, you know, in the back of my head, I'm trying to get the bike paths to go near some of our businesses, you know, that provide, you know, some revenue for our businesses, you know.
So in terms of what I see here on the draft plan from Watts, just knowing what I know about where the township has planned for certain activities like the utility service district, the hamlet, the Salem Farms, where the library is located, Pontiac Trail being a gateway. This looks to me to be appropriate, but you all are more familiar with the community than I am.
Yeah.
So, like, I think that Bruce's suggestion of extending, 6 Mile over to the east might be appropriate. And that's not to say that we would suggest that it goes on the road or that we're,
Right.
it's potential future connection. And then the details of that would come at some point if we were to endeavor to implement it.
So, you would put something like this together for us, would you?
Sure.
So you have enough of an idea of where we're coming from?
So based on what I've heard tonight and what I'm showing you here with the draft plan from Watts, it sounds like providing connection across 6 Mile with what they're showing here seems appropriate, unless there's any other routes that you all think would be appropriate to include.
Before you do 6 Mile, because part of it is dirt, what if Northville Township is doing 7? Do we want to do 6 Mile Road then? What would be the purpose of doing 6 Mile when Northville's going to be coming down 7,
Well,
which is all blacktop?
We could talk to Northville and figure out what
The
their
township to see
Yep.
what their
Yep.
future plans are for a bike path?
Good idea.
Paul, could we do this more instead of showing maybe a suggested map, but verbalizing the points that we actually want to connect? We want to connect the hamlet with Northville, with Salem Farm, or Salem Farm Preserve, with the USD, which is a potential for people wanting to use the path, come to the hamlet to buy the ice cream, or open the ice cream shop.
You opening the ice cream shop? Yeah, I think doing both is probably appropriate.
So it just makes it kind of generic enough so that if we were to ask people, what do you think, we're speaking in terms that they can visualize connecting, areas of the community together. And
So are there
for the
other-
purpose of the master plan anyway.
Are there other areas that you think would be appropriate to provide connections?
And that would be the question we'd like to ask, is there anything that would be best? And you got a library, you got, all those other things that you've mentioned so far.
There's, that huge park in that, 8 Mile Lane. I can't remember what it's called, but it's got like all the soccer fields, but they have, a bike path on the road, on the side of the road, that comes all the way to here, I thought.
Yeah, it does. And does anybody know they're doing from Curtis to, or Curry to, doing 8 Mile from Curry to Tower Road, but I don't know if they're doing 8 Mile from Napier to Curry Road under the Oakland County side. Are they adding bike paths to either one of those two projects?
I don't know.
Question. Don't know either.
That would be smart of them.
Does your husband belong to an organization? Okay, would they have information that would be useful to Paul as far as?
Well, I think we could probably contact Oakland County, we could contact Wayne County and see if they've got any similar maps to what we've got. in
Okay,
Washington.
good.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.
Bonnie has a question.
Bonnie?
Yes, I have gotten out the magnifying glass and I've checked this out. The one that is on this map that shows diagonal from Ipsy to wherever it goes diagonal, it says border to border, trail route. Well, it's got little circles on it, and the little circles are yellow and some are not colored. The not colored ones are on road section where you have to get off, there's no trail there, you get off on the road. And the yellow ones are, they put a trail. If you'll notice, there's quite a few that are not, that are on the road. So they're still shoving people back onto the road to walk. And this is an official, I think this trail is in, I'm not sure. That's why we got the map of it, because I think it's in.
So the border-to-border trail is a concept that they've been pushing for
I
years.
know, that's how we got this one from Ipsy to going this way border. It was supposed to go officially north and south, border to border. but-
Right, so they've been pushing this project for a long time, so I think their intent is that eventually it will be all pathway, but currently you know, because, like I said before, all these projects cost money, there's always right-of-way involved, so that's why there are sections that are
And things fall apart
incomplete.
before they get built, I know. But this is what you gave us as a map, and I'm just pointing it out that we can, if they're gonna do the same type of thing on Pontiac Trail, they can still be walking on Pontiac Trail or on the edge of the road and not on a pathway, because that's the way they designed it.
So this is not this is something that the township would be managing. So the township would ultimately put this plan together.
They are the township, and the township has got a few people on the board that like to walk. They don't understand the concept of rural, I don't think, some of them. But I wanted you to know that path isn't all there.
Well, I appreciate all the input on this. This is good, and I think that gives me some direction to be able
So you
to bring
can-
something more solid back to
Okay,
you
good.
in the future.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to old business. Master plan, Salem Hamlet.
So not really a lot new here. As I told you last time, or promised you last time, I am working on some visuals in terms of some of the design that represents the conceptual discussion that we had last time. I've taken a crack at doing some updates to the language. So what you see in front of you now, I took what you had worked on a year or so ago, which is what was in front of you last month. I went ahead and accepted all the changes that were done at that point so that it wasn't confusing. And then, so all the strike-throughs and changes that are made now are things that I have done since then. So if you have any comments on those, I would welcome them. I do know that there's still more work for me to do in terms of the language. Some of the things, like specifically about the land use, we talked about, you know, what might be possible on the east side of the railroad tracks, for instance. That's really not reflected here yet. But, so I took a first crack at that, and since we're getting together, I figured I'd throw it into your packet so you could see it. I also wanted to start the Hamlet area map, because previously the drawing that was in the master plan, the existing master plan drawing, is pretty vague. And then there's this section here, the Hamlet area defined. And so basically, as it's defined, it's this yellow line around the outside of this area. So that's the Hamlet area in a concept, not the Hamlet zoning district, but the Hamlet area from a planning standpoint. So basically, the area that is the Hamlet zoning district, Hamlet Center District, is by and large within the utility service area. Except obviously, I think as somebody mentioned earlier, it does not extend to the east side of the railroad tracks. But this red line is the sewer district, as I understood it. Sounds like there are some other areas that are in the sewer district that didn't show up on the rough map that I used to produce this. So I will certainly do some more research and figure that out, and Mr. Burton, you might be able to provide some specifics in terms of the parcels that I need to include here. So that's what this is. I wanted to get a visual in the plan so that we all kind of knew what we were looking at. I think the other thing that I guess I'd be interested in, and there's some of the language already stated, I tried to state it a little more clearly, that based on the capacity that we currently have for sewer, we've got kind of what we've got here. And the question is, if and when we ever increase capacity here, would we want to, and would we want to include other areas into what would be more akin to this district in terms of the density and the types of land uses? So, you know, does this area widen to the west at all? Does it widen to the east at all, or to the southwest, et cetera?
This is roughly showing you all the water and sewer, the red line, is that what you're basically saying?
Yes, except for apparently this area that I missed,
Okay.
which would be the triangle kind of.
Wouldn't there be engineering map or anything on our system?
That's what I based this on.
Oh, okay.
But I'm hearing that there is some other, What's that?
The sewer payment on that road, it's not gonna be paid for until 2 years.
Right. The expansion, so that didn't show up on the plans that I got. Not your fault.
And they're also, you know, board's looking at getting some funding to improve that system, and I don't know if that includes an expansion or not.
No.
No, right now, just doing a study.
Is there some-
It's just getting started.
For funding, right? I mean, isn't there?
No,
There's
study's
funding-
not for funding.
The SAW grant is providing funding for the study, but
Oh,
not.
for the study, oh, okay, okay.
Right, is that correct? Is that what you
Yeah,
understand?
And
To
then-
see where all this capacity is coming from that we really can't account for right now.
Right. Okay, and does that, adjacent to the study, is there a possibility of getting funding to do some improvements, or?
I don't know.
I think first you have to figure out what the need is.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, I guess I got ahead of it.
Yeah.
I thought that they had already got a smell of funding to improve that system, because it's got a lot of problems.
Funding is for the study. Once the study is done, then we'll be able to kind of determine where the infiltration, if that's what's causing the problem, which I think we kind of generally know that that's probably it, because the capacity issues tend to happen when there's large rain events.
Rain, yeah.
So that being said, assuming, and this is future planning, do you see areas that would be appropriate to kind of expand this? I know that there's been some development pressure to the northwest and southwest. Not pressure per se, but people who have interest in building in those areas. Currently, you'd have to do it on larger lots than what's permitted in the Hamlet district.
Linda?
You guys are on a slippery slope tonight to expand the sewer district. The DEQ has said you can't increase the discharge to the Johnson Creek from that sewer plant. So if you can't increase the discharge, to put an expectation out there for somebody that there's a potential of greater density, when I buy land, and I've been married almost 40 years to my husband, in the time that I've been married, we've added 175 acres to the family farm. When I buy land and I look at the price, there's an expectation of what that land can do, not only today, but in the future. If I buy land that perks, I'm willing to pay more an acre for it, because someday, potentially, it can be developed. If I buy land that doesn't perk, I pay a lot less an acre for it, because it can't be much more than it is today. And so if you create an area and you say someday in the future, this is probably an area we want a sewer, you've created an economic expectation. And so when I come and I buy that land, I have an expectation that it's something more than it is today. I don't think the planning commission wants to get into the place, and I can't believe, with all due respect, that tonight you're even being encouraged to go in that direction, that you would somehow expand a sewer district when you haven't put the basic work into it. You can't, I was on the board when we expanded to Chubb Road.
Sure.
You cannot, we were told by the DEQ, they will not increase the discharge to Johnson Creek. TJ will tell you, it's a very costly process that they're going through to figure out where all this extra water comes from. We did it 10 years ago. And we found out people had their sump pumps connected and shouldn't. And they probably have reconnected and they're gonna do the same project again. But you just can't expand the district if you can't expand the discharge.
I think, you know, basically it was my question, I was just trying to get a clarification on, you know, the grant and what's going on with it, and I don't know all the engineering aspects of it, but I didn't hear any proposals tonight to have an expansion, I don't think, other than people are interested in the property north and west of the hamlet. Now, whether that would entail sewer or whether it would be, you said probably larger lots, which probably means well and septic, I would think.
Right,
you know,
so the language that is written in here, the update to the language clearly states that there are capacity issues that prohibit expansion.
Okay.
So the question that I'm asking is that anything that you'd ever like to pursue in the future? And if anybody who's looking at doing development is doing their homework, they're gonna look, first of all, at the language in the master plan, because that's the guiding principle. for future development. And then they'll come talk to the township, I would think, before they made any substantial investment. So that being said, this is a future planning exercise. And so really what I'm trying to understand from you all is what your expectation is for the future of this area. And, you know, I know that there's some interest from folks in potentially getting taps for those areas. But like I said, it's clearly stated and we all know that there are capacity issues currently.
I mean, if we just, I mean, I was really happy about getting the SAW grant to do the study, because if we can just utilize what the original capacity
Right,
was,
right.
we'll gain a lot of taps that can be used to make the sanitary sewer system hopefully not in the red anymore
Right.
eventually.
I mean,
So,
as
you know, I guess, you know, right now that would be considered an expansion if we can actually get some more taps, but
No,
we have to do this
It's
study.
not an expansion.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, that's
we would
already
gain,
been
we would gain
accommodated.
some taps that we can't use now because we have all this water capacity.
not
If we
working
find
right.
out what the problems are, get it working right.
But there's a difference between
There-
using capacity and an expansion. An expansion takes the boundaries and it makes it greater. It's not an expansion. And if
Okay,
you-
so the wording, I didn't use the right wording.
But if you
I
go-
didn't mean it in that.
No, no,
I just
you-
meant it'd be nice to have
Absolutely.
to utilize some of the taps that were originally planned for it, and by doing the study and hopefully correcting the problems, we're gonna be able to use some of these taps, and some of these empty properties can be utilized that, you know,
So-
originally we're supposed to have taps.
In other words, improve the efficiency of the system. we
Of
have
what's
in
here,
place.
right.
Right. And I think we've come to the conclusion now, with your input, Linda, that we're not going to expand. You know, it's not feasible. So what we basically are looking at is the improvement of the system, where we can have more taps within the system, because that has been approved in the past.
No, you're not gonna add more taps. That's a finite number. What you're
You
doing
can
is you're
utilize the
talking about-
taps that are
yes.
there.
You're
Right.
talking about using the existing capacity.
The existing capacity.
But you're not adding anything, and again, having
No.
been involved where the Bach Farm, which is one of them that your planner's talking about, that's to the west and north, they wanted, when we went to Chubb Road, they wanted all the capacity. Not only did they want all the capacity, they wanted more capacity. They wanted about 240 taps, which was greater than the system had available. And so that's again where they would, if you said we're gonna expand to what's on your map, they'd be thrilled. They've been trying to sell that farm for 20 years.
What's on my map?
Also,
The Bach Farm.
Sewer system.
on both sides of the city.
Maybe eventually.
East of us.
In your Hamlet area, you have
Yeah.
the big open space that's owned by the Bach.
Yeah, no, the hamlet, the yellow line around the outside is what was defined in the existing master plan as the hamlet area.
No, it's not.
It is in the
This
master
what-
plan currently, Linda.
It's a
Thank
half
you.
section
Okay,
line.
excuse me. Currently, and you're exactly right, TJ, if the capacity issues that exist now were taken care of, there are taps that have been designed, the capacity is designed to provide taps for the parcels within the red line, so the sewer district as it's designated.
I think there's over 100 that
There
are
may
being
be
utilized,
some extra.
and yet our capacity is
Right,
full.
yeah, so there are like 140, I believe, that are still out there that are not spoken for, but our capacity is full, that's correct.
That's
So-
not correct either. Chubb Road bought taps that aren't being utilized, that they already own.
Right.
So they're not being used, but they are owned. There's not 140 outstanding.
I can tell you, Mr. Kalo owns 12.
Okay, so anyhow, this is a planning exercise, and what you as planning commissioners, as representatives to the township, have the ability to do is future plan. And so you do have the ability to think, sometime in the future, we would like to expand this district. We would like to see greater density in other areas. So it is not inconceivable for a planning commission, for a community to say, though we have capacity for this right now, in the future, this is our vision for the area. We would like to see it expand. And by all means, that is what happens in a planning scenario. So if you did want to do that, it would be the community's prerogative to plan for the future. Not that there's capacity now. It's the same exact thing that we've done with, or that the township has done with the USD district. There's absolutely zero capacity there, but that area has been planned for utilities. So if you felt as a community that you wanted to expand this area, it's certainly your prerogative to do that. Any developer who would look at this area would know, if they're worth their salt as a developer, that they should do their homework to understand whether there's existing capacity or whether they might actually be on the hook to expand the capacity. Obviously, the DEQ has said that they don't want more discharge into the drain. There are other ways to do it. So we don't have to, again, come up with the engineering plan to do it in order to plan for it. So that's the question that I am posing to you tonight.
So the question is, if we could, would we want to?
Yes.
Let's say we could put in 500 taps right now, we're above what we have. Would we want to?
Right.
That's the question, if I'm
Right.
understanding you correctly.
Yes.
You want some direction from us. If we could, would we want to?
Correct. And if you decide no, then that's great, because then that also provides direction to those potential investors that it's not worth their time to do that.
You know, I say this every time that we continue the Hamlet discussion, which we've been talking about ever since I got on this planning, and it just keeps going and going. I would really like a meeting here with the residents of the Hamlet. I don't want to make decisions for them. Let's hear what the tax-paying residents of our community who live in the Hamlet have to say about what they vision the future to be. Why are we doing that?
That seems reasonable.
I think it's quite reasonable to invite all of the Hamlet residents, tax-paying residents and all, to come here, and let's have the good visionary discussion. They may tell us that we're smoking dope. I mean, you know,
Well, I think.
not that there's anything wrong with
Some of
it. But seriously, wouldn't it be nice, instead of this group planning for people who we haven't even heard from?
Or Matt.
Well, we've
Yeah,
informally
we're mad.
heard that they want the system fixed. Yeah, we've heard that.
That
you
they
know.
what?
They want the system, the present system fixed.
Oh, yeah, I know that, but we're
Yeah.
talking about lights and doing this and traffic.
the rest of the
and
stuff.
that-
Oh,
the
okay,
whole-
okay.
All of it.
This whole
Yeah.
document
The whole
that we've
vision,
been trying to
yeah.
digest
Yeah.
for 2 years.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
do it. Let's,
Yeah.
you know, I talk about it every time.
yeah, yeah. you're
Let's
right.
get it done.
You're right.
Let's do it.
We would have to handle.
We have a workshop meeting, invite whoever wants to come.
Yeah, invite them and make sure
Yeah.
there's a good invitation.
We do things like that. We could do a little mini charrette or a workshop, a one-day.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and invite these folks in. They may have a better vision than ours.
Well,
Should we entertain a motion to do that, or?
well, I think you probably have to check with your
With the
your
board.
board to make sure that
Yeah.
there's budget for
I
it
was
before we
thinking that too.
do it, but I will certainly have that conversation. with
Okay, we'll do
supervisors.
that.
Can't that become part of one of our meetings? Without additional expense, that we invite all of the Hamlet people to?
Potentially, but we'll want to put a program together
Okay.
to do this. So.
And if you want to go hang things on doors, I'll come and help you hang things.
Should be a workshop. yeah.
Certainly, we would want to do some noticing. We would
Yeah.
probably want to make it a workshop as opposed to a planning commission meeting. I mean, we could do it in place of a planning commission meeting if you didn't have any business items that particular month.
Okay,
which
sounds good.
We haven't had business items for the last couple of months, so it's a good possibility.
No, that was great.
All right, well, we'll work on that. I'm happy to bring that topic up with the supervisor and see if we can put something together. We'll
Yeah.
work with the chair.
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
okay, Linda?
Dan, I want to clarify something, because if you know me, you know I don't like to be told I'm wrong. So when you look at this map that has been provided, it goes from Chubb Road to Curry. This is the current master plan from the township. The Salem Hamlet area is defined as extending east to Chubb Road, the southern half section, 11, and the northern half section of section 14. This area is defined by a physical border comprising natural resources areas further to the north and south of the designated study area. if you know anything about a section, sections are 640 acres. The half-section line is halfway between the roads. So this map is not correct because this goes all the way to the section boundary, not the half-section line. Just like to clarify that, again, I read from what's online, the current master plan. So this yellow that comes up to Curry Road should actually come where that red is for the Hamlet District. That would be that boundary, not up at Curry Road. And the same, that's, 11 is on one side, 14 is on the other. 11 would be on the north side, 14 would be on the south side.
If you would be so kind, what page are you on?
I am
So we
on,
can just
hang on.
follow.
This is, I think, the second or third, I'm in part 10.
I'm happy to speak with Linda after the meeting's over if you would like.
Okay.
If you want to move along, just for the good of the rest of the order here.
Every time I write me, I will move along.
Okay,
It's page 71, Ann.
so are we,
So that was, again, another discussion item, and I think that the intent of trying to put some type of public input process together would be perfect.
okay.
So we're now to reports if you want. There's no
Okay,
action.
yeah, right. Board of Trustees. For report. We're pretty well. Yeah, we're pretty well. I mean, we're not gonna go through it there. Unless we got.
Do you have comments on
I'll
that?
tell you, if
on
we have
language?
comments, maybe TJ, do you have, key them up to you by,
You want, yeah, that's fine.
we could do that, yeah.
Unless you want to discuss it now, I'm happy to do whatever you like.
Yeah. Well, TJ's done a lot of work.
I mean, the rest of it?
Yeah. Do you want to go through it now, or do you want to continue it next meeting, or do you
No,
want
I
to?
marked up mine.
Okay,
I mean, I got things.
Okay,
written
great. Let's do it.
I didn't see how it could be done, but.
yeah. Let's do it. You want to start out here?
Okay. Page 11-2, in section 2, number 2, about halfway down, about the character and that, it says existing buildings that are not consistent with this character should be remodeled to be consistent with it. How do you do that? How do you get the homes along 6 Mile Road to look like?
Which paragraph you on? I'm sorry.
The
Number 3.
bottom part of paragraph 2,
11-2.
where it starts existing building, the last part of the sentence, is the last sentence. How do you?
Again, this was language that existed, so unless it's green, it's nothing that I added. So I won't take
I don't believe it's.
You know.
credit for it. If you don't want to have it in there, we can take it out. But I can't speak to why that was in there before. I left some things that were there already.
You see the house over here off on the curb of the owner looks nothing like all the homes that are over here.
Right.
And that's part of the hamlet.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, geez, I wonder how they missed that house. You know, and it looks just like a regular brick ranch.
Right.
And that,
So would you like to strike that?
I think that, I don't know how you're gonna make the people make them look like. Because you also said in here, and there's also statements in here that say, when they build a house, it should look like, but we're not telling them what houses are we looking at, that that's what they should resemble.
So what we could do, though, if this is if you believe that that's the way you want to go, what you would do then is put some design criteria that would be part of your ordinance or an architectural standard that when people build, they would have to adhere to.
They could consider, like the 2 houses that are for sale here just down from the church, or just up from the church,
Yeah.
one of the 2. And there's only that one at the corner of Salem Road and 6 Mile. That's the only other old-looking place that to me would be historical looking.
Mm-hmm.
You have the store across the street.
What's that?
You have the store across the street.
Well, the store,
And the little green, that greenhouse.
What greenhouse? The big one? Yeah, that's what I was, there's two of them in a row, aren't
There's the
there?
white one across the street.
What white?
A Sagan.
Salem and the southwest corner?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one I was just mentioning. Those are there's only about 3 or 4 buildings that look old. What, Rittering House?
Post office is old.
Yeah.
So is that what you want? Like that look?
You know, it's just that I hate to, I just don't see, you gotta make it look this way. You know, we're not Plymouth or Northfield where they have a bunch of these homes in a row that the historical society, it dictates the color and everything else to them. You know, we don't have that.
You could, though. That's the question, do you
Yeah,
want?
so I don't-
This is language that was in here, and I'm not
Because I don't know if any of
direction
these
per
the
se. I
later
wanna hear what
homes
you
that are
want.
down here, the colonials that they put up here, it's got the oddball driveways where 2 houses share the same driveway, I don't understand that. But they're not any other than a cream colored house or a white colored house, that's not, there's nothing historical there. You know, I just see.
So we've got a concept, I think, and, you know, I don't know that we can get into such detail. with
I don't see where
concept.
we meet a lot of it here ourselves.
Yeah, no, we don't mean it, but it's what we would like to see, I think, Darrell, is what how this was all put together. Is that correct? Is what,
Well, like I said, by and large, this is existing language, so
Yeah.
but
the intent of the existing language was.
it's been all about this kind of
concept.
historic character. and
Yeah,
concept
trying,
of
you know,
this
trying to have a certain flavor for the hamlet, but I think like Augie's comment, we'll get the people from the hamlet in and see what they think. If they think we should, you know, try to, in some ways, pursue this, we can't dictate to people, but we can try to have ways of encouraging. Linda?
Representing somebody that operates here in the township and having a vested interest.
One of the things there's no shall, it all says should or may. It's not something that's ironclad. There's one, I read this, there's no shall there.
No, that's what I'm saying, it's conceptual.
Yes.
It's what we would
If you
like
want
to
to.
see happen. You know, in an ideal world. You know, that's, Linda, go ahead, finish.
I think that one thing you're saying in the hamlet, there's a scale of home. There are no 2,500 square foot homes in the hamlet. There's smaller homes on small lots, but there is no one architectural type characteristic.
Right now.
And I will tell you right now, the LLC that owns the post office has put a significant amount of money into renovating that building long-term. The average homeowner in the hamlet years ago was a lower income area other than Northfield Crossing. They do not have the wherewithal to invest the type of money that's been invested in the building that houses the post office. And Darrell's right. There is no one historic type of home here, but there is, and there would be value to talk about the scale of home. If you think about it, you've got all these homes, even the new homes that have been built, if you drive up and down Euclid and Frederick, they're maybe 1,400 to 1,600 square feet, or 12 to 16. They're not 22, they're not 24, and so that may have some value. That again, as you're on these lots and all of a sudden you don't have a big McMansion that looks out of place. So maybe the language we have isn't quite right, but there's some value to kind of the general concept.
Have a general scale, yeah.
And kind of tying in with that, the section on the Hamlet Center on page 11-3, the very bottom where it talks about multifamily units and converted single-family homes, and we talked about that before, how that's, would be something viable. What I would like to see, those would be good off of 6 Mile Road. Like,
Not
I
on
wouldn't
6
want to
Mile Road.
see, rows of duplexes right on the road, but off of the main corridor in some of those neighborhoods.
Would you consider an upper flat, a lower office area, like a house got converted to.
Yeah.
Right, but they, you know, this specifically talks about, you know, converting single-family homes into, you know, duplexes, quadruplexes, townhomes. Off of the main, off of this, you know,
Yeah, okay.
main hamlet area. I mean, you know, the
Mhm.
6 mile road.
Okay.
Especially as close as that road is, just homes right there.
Sure. Okay, perfect, thanks.
Harold,
I mean,
if you can-
you know, what do you think?
Okay.
Go ahead, TJ, I'm all.
No, I mean, what do other people think about that?
I mean,
I'd like to see the, more, at least at storefront level, commercial, if you've got residential above, at storefront level,
Yeah.
some sort of commercial or professional,
Yeah.
you know, so if you're walking by there, it's either a shop or an office or something.
Okay.
Yeah, well, the next thing I was wondering about is on 11, page 11 for Salem Veterans Park. When it talked about the township exploring options to expand the park and including usable space such as play structures for children. Now, I remember that being explored maybe 7 years ago or more when they first, you know, did the Salem Veterans Park. And the opinion was, why put so much money into a play structure when there is one right at the elementary school, which is within walking distance? So I don't know if that's something that, you know, would necessarily want, I mean, the township could always expand the play structure at the school. I know
Yeah.
other cities have done that, I mean, it's, you know, real nice ones, but I don't know if people would want to have, you know, 2 spots where you're gonna have kids' play structures.
I think
My
my
thought
concept
is-
here that I read into this was just the possibility of expanding that park into more of a multi-purpose, multi-use park for the residents. That's, I think,
My
conceptually.
thought in looking at it from the outside is that we talked about enhancing features that would be attractive for this area, that
Right.
would entice folks to come in and spend some time right here in the kind of hub, if you will. And so the park is beautiful, but I don't ever see anybody in it. And if you put even a simple structure in there, whether it's just, you know, a couple slides or swings, and a picnic bench, you might see some, you know, young parents or something who would walk their kids over during the day, stop at the ice cream shop, for instance, and then go across the street and spend some time in the park. So that was kind of what I was thinking in terms of adding that language there. And certainly the playground is a viable option for folks, but you know, having a little kind of pocket park close by is also a really nice kind of neighborhood element.
it draws people.
Would that be acceptable with all the people that donated to have that park put there? That built that park? The people, because it was all done by donations.
Well, I think
The
there's.
township didn't put nothing into it.
No, and I'm not suggesting that we would take down anything that's there. I think that there's some additional space that's owned by the township that might be expandable.
Behind the fence, where the grass parking lot or whatever they wanted to add to the park.
Yeah, I was gonna want to
But
look
leave
at
that
that.
like it is, because that's what the donated money was
Sure.
for.
We can be more specific about that and protecting the existing assets there. And in fact, the kind of visual pieces that I'm working on, I would have rather brought it all back together, but I don't have the visual pieces done yet.
I was thinking that the additional things would go to adjacent property because you don't have a lot of room in that little
Yes.
piece of property. So I wasn't thinking you're gonna encompass everything in that park. I didn't get a chance to really look at it and assess it, you know, as to what, I don't even know how that parking lot butts up to it or whatever.
The parking lot is right behind the fence, so we own all that, other than the yellow house on the corner. Brown House, I don't know what's it, I think it just should be just bulldozed in and forget it. It's too old to upgrade.
We're looking at the hamlet, we ought to look about that stuff relative to this hall and the township itself. We're a little behind on our
I think
facilities.
Bonnie's got a comment in the back there.
Bonnie?
You might know that, take a look and see how many people are actually using the playground material at the school, because unless there's a baseball game or a kid's team sport, you don't ever see anybody using that school. So if you're gonna put playground equipment up here,
Yeah, that's it, you know, how many people are gonna avail themselves to using it. You know, I mean, you have to look at how many people are right in the direct area, you know. Because you think of a park, you
you know
just
how far to
walk
walk
over
here
to
the
it.
playground.
Yeah, but it's all, you know, all that stuff has to be looked at. You can't, Linda?
The reason that you don't see people down at the school is because we don't know where it is. If you look on the map, that also is misidentified. And probably the people don't know where to go to play on the playground,
It says-
if they're using this map.
It says school way up here on the north, and the school's way down here.
Yeah, I see the school right here, right here. See? There's the school. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Okay, this is the school right here. Right.
Anything else, TJ?
Yeah, you see that, Paul, you see where the
And
the school is, you know, down at the very southern end of that red encompass
Yeah, you can see the
area.
building.
Yeah.
What page is that, you know, so, and I think it says school up here, I think that's what she's referring to.
That's the name of the street.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the name of the street.
No, it's not.
Well, it shows up from the GIS, but
Yeah.
we can take that off because it's one of those paper streets.
There's no school street up there.
they're using,
That one that was over from parking lot of the school.
There's no, first of all, there's no road up there, let alone one named school.
That's something I want to look at. Do we own what what is feasible, you know? But anyway, what else?
Go ahead.
TJ, yeah.
Take the covered bike racks out.
yeah, it's just a little thing, but I don't. just-
Oh, I
11, 9,
At the
and it
top,
was there, it was
I
language that
meant
was
to
there
take that out,
before.
I'm sorry.
What are covered, I've never seen a covered bike rack. I meant to look it up to see what it looked like.
But you were
But
gonna
I don't
take
think
it
it's
out,
something
Paul?
I
we
was
ever-
gonna take it out because I
Yeah,
remember your
concept
comment
of-
previously, yes.
Yeah, you
I
were
mean,
take it out.
if you could improve the Hamlet area, it would be fine to have like some bike rack, especially if you have a few stores, you know, for people to go to. But
Oh, I took out the bike lockers, I just didn't take out the covered bike rack.
like a bike rack, you know, but,
Okay, moving on.
yeah,
Is that it?
that's, other than some little safety, spelling things.
Okay.
Email
uh,
those.
Okay, good discussion. Thank you for everybody for all your input. Some of these things are more complex than you think at first look.
That's why we talk about them all, that's why
Yeah.
that's why we do this.
Okay, Darrell, do you have anything that you wanted to report from zoning or anything?
There's, no, the last one I wasn't here, and it was cut short because of electrical wires close to the building. They rushed the vote and out the door they flew.
Yeah, that was, yeah, I heard some stories about all that.
Yeah. So there's nothing.
Okay, I don't have anything on land preservation, so I need a motion to approve the minutes of March 20th, 2017.
Make a motion to approve the planning commission meeting minutes of March 20th, 2017 as submitted.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Darrell, seconded by Augie, to approve the
Planning Commission minutes of March 20th, 2017 as submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Any more public comment?
I really do tonight. We've had a lot of discussion, and I'm a little disappointed in, anytime we, the public, bring up something, it seems like from this side table, there's an attempt to shut it down. And I don't understand that. When we talked about the expansion of the sewer district, and I shared my thoughts. They're valid thoughts, whether even you agree with them or not. And I appreciate that the Planning Commission has a willingness to want to listen to us from the public and give us such an opportunity for input. But I really feel tonight, like, there's been a real disconnect from the table, and I don't know why. I'm not trying to do this gentleman's job, but I do bring a lot more history and knowledge from my table than from his, simply because of the length of time I've lived here and the variety of roles that I've filled in my lifetime. And I kind of hope that as we go forward, that we won't have that adversarial feeling, that all points of view will be welcomed, and we simply listen, and it just seems like, particularly when I speak, it seems like it almost, you got to kind of try to discredit what I say. And I'm very sorry that's my feeling tonight, but I do thank you for
Okay,
listening.
so from the next meeting on, we won't have those issues, right?
Thank you.
We'll try to communicate better with one another. Any other public comment? Okay, this meeting is adjourned at 9:01.